This is an analog clock. On this analog clock, we have two different hands. The long dark blue hand is our minute hand, and the shorter light blue hand is our hour hand. Every time this minute hand goes around the clock face an entire time, it means 1 hour has gone past. And if we count all of these little dots here, we would have 60 little dots to represent that there are 60 minutes in an hour. So every time a minute goes past, the big blue hand will just move 1 dot. So in order for an hour to go past, the big blue hand has to move 60 little times. And you will notice that as the big blue hand is moving, the little blue hand is slowly moving its way towards the next number to show us that it's almost going to be the next hour on the clock. All right, so we've gone around an entire hour there, 60 little minutes went by, and so now it's pointing at 4 o'clock. And I know it's 4 o'clock because the big hand is pointing straight at the 12 and the little hand is pointing directly at the 4. So let's watch again and see how those two hands move together. So even though this big hand is the one that's going around the most, this little blue hand also moves. So, and we're going to pause it as we get to 1/4 past, 1/2 past, and 5:15 to see where this little blue hand is pointing at. Let's have a look and see. So it's going to be 15 minutes to get to 1/4 past, because 15 is a quarter of 60 and there are 60 minutes in an hour. So we've just gone a quarter of an hour. So now it's pointing at the 3, which is 1/4 past 4. And we will notice that this blue hand is no longer pointing directly at the 4. It's now a quarter of the way between the 4 and the 5. It's not quite halfway, it's just pointing at about a quarter of the way. Let's see what happens when we move another 15 minutes to get to 1/2 past. Can you see the little blue hand moving as the big blue hand moves? So another 15 minutes, nearly gone. There we go, we're at 1/2 past. And so the little blue hand now, where is that pointing? It's pointing directly halfway between the 4 and the 5, telling us that it's past 4 o'clock, because the little blue hand's already gone past the 4, and it's moving towards the 5, so it is 1/2 past 4. And if we keep that little hand, the minute hand moving, let's see what happens. Can you see the little blue hand moving? We're going another 15 minutes till we get to 1:45. And now the blue hand, it's so close to being on the 5, but it's not quite exactly on the 5 yet. So it's actually three quarters of the way between the 4 and the 5. And let's see what happens. When it goes all the way to the 12, we expect it to be pointing directly at the 5 to show us it is 5 o'clock. There are some little blue marks on the clock and there are some darker blue marks on the clock as we get to each number. These fatter blue marks here indicate to us that 5 minutes has gone by. So between here and here, that's 5 minutes, which makes our life really easy because we can count by 5s using the clock face. So watch this: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. That's 1/2 past or 30 minutes past 7, or we could write that as 7:30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. So when the big hand is pointing at the 3, why do we call it 1/4 past? Well, that's because a clock face can be divided perfectly into quarters. So we've got the first quarter here, the second quarter here, the third quarter here, and the fourth quarter here. So when we're looking at 1/4 past, it means that a quarter of the hour has gone. All right, so we're 1/4 past the o'clock time we just had. In this case, we're 1/4 past 2. I can tell that because this blue hand's moved just a little bit away from the 2 and it's coming closer towards the 3. So it's 1/4 past 2. When the blue minute hand moves to the next quarter of the clock, we call that half past. So when it's pointing at the 6, you always know it's half past. And then here where it gets to the 9, it becomes quarter to. So we've gone from past, quarter past, here, half past. So they're both past times. We call them past. And then as soon as we're past the 6, we start calling it a to time. So it becomes the 25 minutes to, 20 minutes to, quarter to, or 15 minutes to. This would be 10 minutes to and 5 minutes to. All right, and then at the 12, it's an o'clock time. So here it would be 5 minutes past, 10 minutes past, 15 minutes past, 20 minutes past, 25 minutes past to 30 minutes past here, which could also be called half past. All right, so these quarter hours all have another special name that you should remember. Okay, so we're going to move past quarter past 2, and we're going to be taking this down. We're now at 20 past 2, 25 past 2, half past 2. So now after we've gotten to half past 2, the next big time that you should remember is this one. So it becomes a to time. So now we're at 25 to 3. All right, even though this does not say 25 to 3 here, this is where analog time does get a little bit trickier. All right, because if we went 60 minus 35, our answer would be 25, which means we've got 25 minutes left until it gets to 3 o'clock. So when we're reading an analog clock, we say the names a little bit different than we would a digital clock. We could still say 2:35, but sometimes you'll hear some different terminology. So in this case, the terminology would be 25 to, or they might say 25 to 3, okay? So here we've got, it's called 2:40 on our digital clock, but often with an analog clock, you'll hear this called 20 to 3 or 22, people will say for a shortened version. And then here we've got 2:45, and you can say that using the analog clock, but you'll also hear people call this 15 to or quarter to. So quarter to 3, 15 to 3. And then here we've got 10 to 3, and here we've got 5 to 3, and then here we've got 3 o'clock. So remember that everything from the 6 to the 12 is going to be a to time, and everything from the 12 to the 6 will be a past time. So it will be 5 past, 10 past, 15 past, 20 past, 25 past, half past. All right, and then here we've got 25 to, 22, quarter to, 10 to, 5 to, and then we've got arrow clock time.